Hello. Yes, I'm wearing a hat. Wondering why? Well, it's because today I'm going to Mars. I'm wearing it because of the dust. I don't really need to protect myself from the sun. It's not too warm in Mars. Did you know that the temperature at your feet in Mars it can be different from the temperature where your head is by 15 or 20 degrees because of the low atmospheric density? Your feet can be 40 degrees and your head will be 20 degrees. That's pretty crazy, right? Anyhow, on to our presentation. We're talking about the essay that you're writing next. It's called the Rhetorical Analysis. I wanted to do a simplified version of your prompt and also give you some explanation of how to outline it. So, the basic purpose of this essay is to examine bias. That's it, of a news website in particular. Step one, you'll choose a mainstream news website. Mainstream meaning it's not someone's personal blog. It is a news website like a CNN or Fox News, but something more extreme than those would be a good pick. All right. Step two, think about topics that are biased, like immigration, politics, race, the environment, guns, and start looking at the website with an eye for those topics, because those are where you're going to find the most bias. And then finally, once you've explored the website for a while, I would suggest reading at least 3 articles. Get ready to write your essay. And to get ready, you're going to outline. All right. What's this? Oh, I think I didn't erase the slide. Anyway. Outlining. There are so many ways to structure an essay, but I want to show you like 4 different ways that might really work for this one. So step one, focus on language. Now, if you focus on language, you'll see that the body paragraph where it says evidence says, give examples of biased language. So that means looking for sentences or words that seem biased. Let's talk about immigration. If a website is using words like illegal immigrant, then it might be biased. If it's using words like undocumented workers, it also might be biased. But here's a way you can outline. You could say, my intro is going to summarize the website and talk about its bias. That gets our reader interested and understanding of what you're going to do. So that might be your first paragraph. And then after the intro, we call the rest of the paragraphs the body paragraphs, which is weird, right? It means the intro would be the head and the conclusion would be your feet, which is kind of weird to me, but they call it the body. So the first part of the body paragraph in an essay like this, and in most essays in general, I would say, is give your reader some context or background about the specific thing you're looking at. In this case, I'd want to give the reader a little background about the website. Yeah, in the first paragraph, I said it was biased, but now let me tell you about the background. Who started it? How long has it been around? Who bought it out, you know? And you also want to give a citation when you do that. You want to write down like where you got your research, okay? And then in my body paragraphs, if I'm looking at language, I'll focus on different sentences that I find. So I might have a whole sentence where I talked about the use of language in a title, and then also the language in the article. And I'd also want to explain why that's biased, not just say, see, it's biased. So this would be the way my body paragraphs can focus on something, just the language. And then to conclude, in this style of essay, I might want to reflect on my findings and say, given the amount of bias in just these few articles I read, it seems obvious that this website is considerably biased. All right. Another way you could do this is instead of look at language, your body paragraphs could focus on, I should have kept the context one here, but they could focus on a topic, just a topic. I'm going to look at all the mentions of gun control or the environment on this website. And that gives your essay a focus. So that's one option. Or you can focus on different topics. You could focus on like religious freedom or religion of the government. You could then the next paragraph talk about the way the website looks at guns. The next paragraph could talk about the way the website looks at the environment. Okay. Another way to approach this essay is to look at images or imagery. You could look at colors on the website, the photos the editors chose to accompany the articles, the cartoons. You could talk about the way pictures are chosen or manipulated. There's a lot to talk about in terms of that. Or you can do the medley, where you say, I'm going to look at this website. I'm going to first look at the way they deal with the topic. Then I'm going to look at the way they use language. And then I'm going to look at images. You know, this is more of a watered down approach, but it's effective. So there you go. Those are some ways to outline this essay. I did a pretend essay. Remember I said I'm going to Mars? You almost forgot about that, didn't you? So I picked Mars News, which is a zine produced by the Mars colonies that when I first looked at it, it has a bias. It seems to think Earthers are stupid. So I would bring that up in my intro paragraph, kind of generally what I'm looking at, why it's biased. And then in my second paragraph, my first part of my body of my essay, I would give that context I talked about before. I give some history and background of Mars News. Who founded it? Were they part of the mutant colony? I don't know. Did they originally start as a full newspaper and then they got reduced to a small zine because they were oppressed? Well, I don't know. I do some research and then I'd be sure to cite my research. Then in the follow-up paragraphs, I would want to go over the things I saw on the Mars News that seemed biased. I'm doing the medley approach. So I would find this, I saw this language where it said, Earthers stink. And I would explain where I found that, why that seems biased to me, and some other language I found. I would also talk about a heated topic on Mars, which is water hoarding. So that would be something I'd look at. The way they present it on their website might favor the people living on Mars over the Earthers. And then finally, I might look for some biased imagery. If we show pictures of Earthers in swimming pools, it's going to make Martians upset because they don't have very much water. All right. And then finally, I do my conclusion by analyzing a little deeper all the stuff put together, saying, you know, considering all the evidence presented, the language, the topic, the visuals, it's clear that Mars News is biased against Earthers. Okay, that's it. Outline. I just made one. So what next? Well, you write your paper. So I would just want you to, when you jump from your outline to your paper, I want you to try to write quick and fast. Don't overthink it. Throw some quotes at it. Follow that outline. Don't fixate on perfection. The whole point of a first draft is just getting it out there. You know that's the hardest part, is just getting started. So it could be the worst writing ever. All right. And then we'll talk about revision next time. Have a great week. Good luck with this topic. I look forward to seeing what you pick.